Hello, and welcome to Analysts Gone Wild. We're on episode 26. We got a great crew here today. I'm Robert Kramer with Moor Insights and Strategy. I cover data, ERP, supply chain management, other things around data and AI, but we got a good group of guys here and want to kind of go around the horn. But tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at. We'll kind of start at the bottom with John with the beard, and we'll
with the beard. Okay,
we'll talk a little bit about beards today.
That's what I'm known as.
Well, you know,
now that's part of your identity.
Yeah,
that's part of my identity now. There you go. Thank you so much, Robert.
Tell us a little bit about us. About your beard and yourself.
There. I think that's all I need to introduce myself. Just say it. John Hansen. I'm the founder and chief editor for Procurement Insights, one of the oldest and longest standing blogs in the procurement world. So everything I'll bring to this discussion is through a procurement lens. And I think you're going to find it interesting because of the assessment I did of the links that were provided for the news we're covering today. So glad to be here and sharing the virtual airwaves.
Thank you. We'll move over to the other John, who's in, I think, Italy today.
I am in another beautiful day in Tuscany here. John Santaferraro. I'm the host of the Digital Analyst and the CEO of Ferraro Consulting, where we have more insights and strategy, along with more insights and strategy. So glad to be here.
Thank you. We'll go over to Michael.
Thanks. Sure. Michael Fauscette, the CEO and founder of Arian Research. We focus a lot on across the enterprise apps world, but particularly around CX and the intersection of CX and AI, agentic AI, generative AI. And I'm also the host of the podcast Disambiguation.
And you have a beard as well. So is that
and I have a beard as well. It's important.
Yeah. So
I think that's a prerequisite. We should only people.
I think it should be. Yeah.
Only for guests, not for hosts.
Yeah, I like having it, but it kind of bugs me a little bit after like a week or two. But I don't know.
What do you gotta get past that?
Yeah, no, I can't. So my wife hates it. But Sam, what do you think about beards?
Yeah, I mean, I have tried once, and it was a painful experience, at least for me. I could not handle it, to be completely honest. A lot of maintenance, a lot of work. So kudos to you guys that you guys are able to take out that time and able to maintain.
Well, you can take the David Letterman approach and just don't touch it.
Yeah, I need to do that.
I tried that once during the pandemic, but it gets ugly after a while.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I did, but it didn't work.
All right, Sam, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so Sam Gupta, Elevate IQ. Our focus is enterprise software. Obviously, host of WBS Talks as well. Robert, over to you.
Well, let's jump into some stories. I know everybody talks about AI all the time, and but I'm excited to get into some procurement angles, because then that touches a little bit into financials and ERP and things of that nature, and I like that. And so, hopefully, John, you'll be able to shed some stuff on that. But Treasure Data, they launched some new things. I guess they have what they call a 5 targeted AI suites for marketing. And I think this might play a little bit with you, Michael, with CX and things of that nature, and John also. But what does this do for the customers? I always like to say, like, in the end, it's about the customers and what's the pros and cons. Is it a business impact? It's today or tomorrow, both. But I think this is a faster execution with these tools for campaigns, a personalized experience, better CRM outcomes. The vendor gets to upsell these integration capabilities, and then they're more competitive. So I think it's a gain either way. But I know, John, you like to kind of run this through some of the things. Is this more of a fluff, or is this real PR?
So, Robert, before we get to the story, just one quick thing from the logistics perspective. I don't know if the screen is jumping for everybody or is it just for me right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think it must just be you.
Okay, so it might be just me. I was thinking if it is jumping for everybody, then we are not dancing here. Just to make sure. Yes, let's go for it. I guess it's just me.
Yep. So,
All right.
do we think this is a real good story, or what do we think?
I mean, these are the right kinds of services to launch for marketing. I mean, I think Treasure Data has an interesting past. They came out of the gates as a data warehouse company, high performance data warehouse company, and a few years back rebranded as a customer data platform and really began to focus on customer. So this is a I think a good approach for a customer data platform versus a data warehouse to have these kinds of AI capabilities. The question becomes how much of each of these things are they doing, right? Because personalization is not simple. Engagement on marketing campaigns requires a marketing platform as well, not just customer data. The creative, I mean, all of these require additional connections, and it's not as simple as the customer data platform suddenly has all of these things and now you click a button and do it. However, if what they are doing is providing the data sources for these suites, that in and of itself is incredibly valuable, and they do know the data. So Treasure Data does know the data. So I think even if it's not sort of end to end on all of these, if they're providing data and AI capabilities underneath the covers and they're being fed out to these other products, I think that's valuable to their customers.
How big of a customer base do they have? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't. I followed them more actually when they were a data warehouse, and I haven't followed the CDP market that much, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they have a pretty good customer base. Robert, I don't know the exact size, but I mean they've been around for a while, and CDP's obviously really popular. Data is the foundation of AI. CDP's the foundation of customer data, and you have to have a platform to deal with that. And it seems like they've done a good job thinking through functionality that they'd need, particularly around automation, which we all know. From a data perspective, you're going to need data automation to keep up with the level of quality you need to have AI work correctly. But the thing in here that I want to dig into more, and I was really intrigued by, is this diamond record. This idea that that we have a different, we've talked about the customer record and the golden record for years, but this is saying we can combine all the structured and unstructured data, real-time data, all of those things together to make a dynamic profile, which is interesting. But I'd like to dig into it a little bit more with them.
Well, it's interesting. Can I just step in here? Because that's a very important point, because I did an analysis, all these using what's known as the Hansen fit score. And two observations I have. About 7-8 years ago, I wrote an article saying that the chief marketing officer was given free rein to implement the technology that interfaced with the customer. CPOs didn't get that on the procurement side of the equation. So what I wanted to find out is, has that enabled them to progress? How well have they progressed with utilizing an agent-based model, working in the agent-based world? Now, one of the things with this initial company, when I did the analysis of it, I look at meta-price, agent capability, strand commonality, real-time adaptability. And in each of the categories, with the first 5 that I did analysis with, they're all strong in that area, much stronger than the majority of actual, I'm talking from a procurement standpoint, than the majority of procurement solution providers are. Why is that? I mean, the link or the weak part of all of this is their audibility and trust factor. It needs improvement. But when it comes down to autonomous agent capability, when it comes down to meta-price and joining everything together, this particular company is fairly strong and stronger at what it focuses on within that universal model than it is within the procurement realm. I'm just trying to understand, is there a certain advantage to being able to let a CMO, chief marketing officer, have the range of picking their technology? Do you know where I'm coming from?
Why wouldn't you want them to? Or be
What's that?
involved? I would want them involved. Sorry,
I mean, obviously they need to be involved from a business owner perspective, but the thing about CDPs over the last 5 years, they started really as a marketing tool, but they're not a marketing tool anymore, and they shouldn't have never been just a marketing tool, right? You need to connect all the different pieces in customer facing, including finance and other shipping, back office, all those functions, but the CDP is really growing into that focal point for data around any of those customer interactions, customer transactions, etc. And again, it seems like they from a feature perspective, they seem to be a fairly strong, but I would definitely like to look at that Diamond record more. Well,
their Metaprise and their agent-based modeling is really strong. In other words, you just mentioned that they figured out how to connect everything around them.
Yeah.
And then within one of the biggest problem with you mentioned data companies, one of the biggest problem is how do you know you have the right data? How do you know you're engaging the right agents, both agentic and human? And that's been one of the biggest problems with most of the technological development. And that's what impresses me about this particular organization is they're strong in that area of what you pointed out, which is recognition that we've got to bring everybody together. It's not just siloed functionalities.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is a deeper discussion, but the customer data platform is a big deal, and it plays a significant role, especially what Michael said. It hits all facets. I think it has to go back to companies having a significant data management strategy to make sure their data is fit for all purposes, and that even it goes even to your friends in procurement, Michael and John. So it's a big deal. But
well. And if you don't, I hate to interrupt, Robert, just one quick thing though, but if you look at Salesforce too, remember they did this with naming too, right? So they moved from a CDP that was marketing focused to a customer data platform or data cloud because of the fact that they wanted to rebrand at a broader, data platform versus a marketing data platform. So I think that's an important point going forward.
That's a very good point. Sam, what do you think? You've been a little quiet on this one.
Yeah, so guys, this is a very interesting debate, and that's probably the reason why CDP has always struggled with the identity crisis. And even today, I don't know, if they are going to survive this discussion, I guess, is probably the right way to put it. In general, John, to your comment, do you need CDP? You probably do, and that's probably the reason why this category exists, to be completely honest. And the reason why it matters and why the marketing golden records matter is because marketing needs a lot of junk, and that junk is not necessarily relevant for everybody else. Okay, if you are going to put all of that junk in the enterprise data warehouse, then it's probably not going to be as meaningful. But that junk is a real gold for marketing, to be completely honest. So that's where the play for CDP is. It's supposed to be very unique overall from the integration ecosystems perspective. In fact, I mean, if you look at, and John S would probably know a lot more and comment on a lot more, that even inside the data warehouse domain and the discipline, I guess, there were specific data warehouses for every single department, LOB specific, because yes, you have the enterprise data warehouse, but you are also going to require very department specific data warehouses as well. And that sort of, lines up with the CDP mindset too in a lot of ways. Now, to your comment, how big is treasure data? I think they are probably one of the leading players. That would be my understanding in the CDP market. Zeta Global, they do a lot, and we have a story about them as well today. So they are more focused on the enterprise. And if somebody is going to survive, I think these are probably going to be the companies that are probably going to survive in the CDP market. From the story perspective, it's the Me Too AI agent story in my mind. For CDP, AI agent definitely matters, and they are introducing those capabilities. So that's exciting.
Well, and think about it. You can't really. You need a way to aggregate all this data. We know that, and to one of your points about the fact that marketing has gone crazy over the last 20 years buying applications. I mean, you look at some marketing organizations; they have 30 or 40 applications if you really dig in, because everybody using their company card to get the thing they really like the best. But all those just create silos. So you got to have a way to get all that data together, and if particularly important, if you think about, we're trying to move from this idea of static journeys to dynamic journeys. Dynamic journeys require real-time data. Real-time data then has to interact with those different systems that help you respond to those interactions. So it's complicated, and it's more and more companies have to have some way to pull all that together, even though they can federate that data in all the other places that you guys mentioned that there is data. Of course there is, but you got to be able to connect to it and get to it when you need it in that, new dynamic journey.
See,
Michael,
one point I would add to yours,
that's why it's
Michael.
important
Sorry
to think
interrupt.
about
One
the
thing-
different places
Wait,
where.
one at a time. Why don't we go with
Go ahead.
This is becoming a real CNN debate, guys.
yeah. Let's go
job.
with John without the beard real quick, and then we'll
Go ahead,
down
John.
Okay. Well, just to add, one important point to add to what you said, Michael, is that it's not a static one-time data cleansing and use. You've got to understand the loop back learning and the updating of that information. And that's where a lot of organizations, well, we got to get clean data. So their first problem is, do we have all the right people for the right data to get started? But then they don't have the infrastructure or the setup to do that loop back continuous learn. And unless you have that, all you're doing is looking at the past. So that's I just wanted to add that on there as well. But John, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back to my comment about those being the right services to offer for marketing from an AI perspective, but they have to be connected. If you think about some of their competitors, Salesforce has a CDP, they have a bigger, and it's already connected to everything, right? That it needs to be connected to, both marketing automation, sales automation. So those connections exist. And then you have somebody like an Informatica who has a customer data platform, because the other issue is, how do you get the data into the CDP and make sure it is the right data and have that be a continuous flow of quality data going in? Yeah. So one of the challenges that I think that Treasure Data faces is the fact that they're not automatically connected to the applications. They don't have the data engineering capabilities. And so they have to partner for those. And for the customer, that means, okay, well, I have to put more pieces of something together.
Yeah, I think this brings up even a bigger issue, everyone. That what marketing is not the same as it was 5 years ago. So marketing was an asset 5-10 years ago. Now it's looked at as an expense. There's less people working in those environments, from that perspective, that companies just don't have 100 people working, and there's like 10, or 20. So they need great automation.
Yeah. And that's where automation comes in. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Robert. That's important.
The problem is, I'm not sure you have to go out and then come back. I'm not sure this is exactly what they're looking for. I think they need more fully integrated systems, and they need it to be more automated. So I think one of you guys all brought it up earlier that, these are disparate systems, these are not all connected. And I think that's, if you're running a business, don't you want everything connected so you don't have to deal with like all these different vendors?
Well, but it's nothing. This goes back to the best of breed versus a suite. It's almost the same argument we've had for 40 years. But the thing is, you've got to have something to use to connect all those things. And a lot of those applications aren't, easily connected, or they don't have anything that they bring to the table that helps you do that. So a lot of companies do go with platforms. I mean, Segment from Twilio is by far one of the most popular platforms out there. So I think you've got to have some way to solve that problem. And you could do it if you have a big vendor that already has something you could use, like if you're a Salesforce customer. But if you're not a Salesforce customer, You need a CDP or some sort of data platform. And the other thing is, in this process, because there's so much data and because it's everywhere and because the quality is suspect and has been suspect for a long time, you need automation tools to make that work better. So that's one of the big changes that you're going to see in these a lot more. And why did Salesforce buy, why is Salesforce buying Informatica? All the data automation tools that they didn't have.
Yeah, it's kind of what we're talking about. All right, let's go to the next one, because I think it kind of gets into, Unifor introducing marketing agents, and we'll kind of get into this. Is this really anything dramatically new, or is it nice to have? And obviously, the agents are, where they're going to help, and we always think that the agents are going to help with a lot of the manual tasks, but are they going to actually replace the jobs, or are they going to reshape the jobs? So these agents, what do we think? Are they helpful, or are they PR related? Obviously, as we go down this line, for the future and the journey with AI, there's going to be more agents that are going to be helpful, but it's all predicated, obviously, on the data and how your organization is set up to actually use those agents. Because I don't think it's a matter of a button being pushed. What do you guys all think?
No, definitely not that. And the one thing I thought was a little strange in this, and I, again, didn't have time to go back and talk to anybody there, but the fact that they talk about the agent and taking, going through, and it has these capabilities to get to the point of action. So I guess it's a decision support tool, because it's not doing anything. It's just teeing it up for you to do, which, if you want human in the loop, I guess that's the right answer, but it doesn't seem like they can go further into automating some of those tasks.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Why is it an either or? I think you have human agents and agentic agents, and they have to collaborate together, because, there's always going to be an element of human in the loop. When you come down to meta prizes, when you come down to strand commonality, when you come down to all of these factors, like with the D&D project I did in the late 90s using a meta prize strand commonality, within 18 months, they went down from 23 people across multiple organizations to 3 people. And the reason being is that the whole thing, at least in the procurement world, has been, well, we've got to free up people to be more strategic. But the key is, to get to that point, there has to be a harmony between both the agentic and the human in the loop. And I don't think you can separate that. And so if you look at it, the strength of any of these systems is going to be, how good are they in the meta prize? How good are they in agent capability, cross-agent capability, and pollination? And how good are they on being able to identify seemingly disparate, somebody used the word earlier, which I think was great, disparate strands of data, where the attributes within these strands are related and collectively contribute to an outcome. I mean, you've got to be able to look at this and say, what's the structure? And I think too many organizations are equation-based, building it out from the technology, and we're going to go back into the service-oriented architecture days, where it's, we got connected all the dots, but that's not a suite. That's not how it works together. I don't know what you think, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, no, and I don't think you're wrong about something. My point was that you're building these agents, and yes, the future, the workforce is a hybrid workforce, digital and human, no question. Mm-hmm. And for certain things, you want human in the loop. But my point is that in this type of system, there are things that you just want to automate, because they don't need somebody to look at. And that's the part that I was kind of surprised. It doesn't seem like they do. It seems like they get you, as they say, get you to an immediate point of action, and then you make the decision. Cool, but it could go further, and you'd think that the agents probably have that capability if they had simply extended that.
And that's a great point. And that's why this company versus, let's say, an Accenture, if we get to that, has a higher Hansen fit score, because they exactly what you just talked about. Automation and strategic bringing together of the agents, but again, are you leading with tech, or are you leading with human involvement, agent-based modeling? And I think that's really the key here. So you're right on the money there.
Yeah. All right, I got to jump in and say bravo, Unifor. These guys, in their acquisition of Action IQ and InfoWorks, are actually building out a true agentic stack. And I mean, you guys know that my hype meter is always on, and everything I read about agents my job has been to de-hype it. And these guys are building out the exact right architecture that is necessary to be able to do agentic AI. They have a data layer, they have a knowledge layer, they have a model layer, and they have an agentic layer. And they're doing it through acquisition, but they're putting the pieces together. So InfoWorks was an agentic AI company, and they were agent first, right? That's what they did. And so Unifor bought them. Action IQ was a customer data platform. And so it had all of the customer capabilities built into it. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that of all of the agentic stuff that we've been talking about here, at least in the sessions when I've been on, that these guys are doing it right. They built the right stack. Yeah. And this announcement, I want to talk to their marketing people because they missed an opportunity to talk about how they're delivering on what they did with these acquisitions. And it's almost not even mentioned there. But to me, that's the real story here. They bought the companies, they're putting the pieces together. They can now deliver on true agentic AI for CX, for all customer touch points.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I did like this product knowledge agent piece of it. I think that's an interesting one that we haven't really talked about a lot. And that's a really valuable thing from a customer perspective. So I thought that was a particularly strong part of the announcement.
I mean, and that's that semantic layer, right? The knowledge layer is the semantics, which you have to have if you're going to do AI. You obviously, we all know data, but then comes this, you have to have the semantics, and then the models, and then the agentic. This could be a home run. I'm going to keep my eye on Unifor.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so John, I guess you are teeing up the conversation a little bit for me to do the promo for some of our previous episodes, I guess. So the story that you were talking about, Action IQ, we had done that in the past week. So if you want to check, you should be checking those episodes. But so here my confusion on this story is going to be, when I look at this, I'm reading this as this is the exact same story as the previous story, the one that we covered, which is going to be treasure data. So I don't know if Unifor is a completely different company. Is it more of the AI company which has acquired CDP and now CDP is sort of part of the stack, or Unifor is a CDP company? So that's where my loss is going to be. So you guys are probably going to have more comment there. But if Unifor is more of the CDP company, then these two stories are same. I mean, there's no difference, I guess, in these two.
Yeah, and I would say Unifor is an AI company now. I don't say that about many companies, but they're an AI company.
Yep.
They put the pieces together to actually be able to put those two letters on their name, unlike 99% of the companies out there that are AI companies.
So basically, the prediction here is going to be a lot of these CDP platforms, which are going through identity crisis right now, are going to be sucked inside AI companies. Is that what it is?
I mean, they're going to build out more platform capabilities. They want to be that connection point for the data. And to do that, you need the automation capabilities, you need the connectivity, MCP, protocols, all those different things that you need to be able to connect those agents and have them do things.
Yeah, everybody's trying to eat these CDP platforms. I mean, I've seen CMSs eating them, now AI companies eating them, so I don't know what's going on.
They had to change, right? Because they were positioned so long as a marketing tool, and that was a real hindrance to their usability. And now, if you think about it from across the enterprise, that makes them much, 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 much more valuable.
Well, you guys are probably hearing this a lot too, but I think that for the first time in the history of technology, that this idea of activating data is a reality. And that's been used as a marketing term in the past, but CDP by itself, in a lot of cases, was mostly about the data and maybe about some additional services that were built on top of that. But it was mostly about the data, enabling one place to bring it all together. And now what you're seeing is the addition of CDP with these other capabilities. That's why again, Salesforce already has all of those same agentic layers. Unifor has those layers. Treasure data that we talked about, they've got the CDP base, and they're trying to build out those other things, but I don't think they're quite there yet.
No, not yet.
Well, I think we got a lot to talk about with these data platforms today. So why don't we move over to, well, Sam, you want to finish it off with before we go to Zeta, or you good?
Let's do the next one. So this is also a very CDP story. I guess everything is about CDP. We can rebrand.
Apparently, this is CDP day.
Gone wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a pretty significant company as well, and they manage data over, what do we got, about over a couple billion people, and identity data, right, guys? And they do they have a customer data platform, and they have an AI-driven marketing cloud as well. So they announced a new agentic AI framework that should help marketers. And does this matter? And it should matter. And you guys will have a lot of feedback. I'm not going to go too far into it because of that. But this seems like a pretty good step, and it's a pretty strong differentiator in a pretty crowded market space. And Michael, you know a little bit about that market space, but does this help them long term? Is this a status quo? What are the pros and cons of this? Did they do it at the right time as well? Because there's some other things going on with their competitors. What do you guys think?
I do like the multi-agent capabilities, right? That's going to be one of the areas that companies are going to struggle with until they have an application that can really help them do that coordination and the integration. So that part I thought was a strong piece of the announcement. It's almost like you need some sort of a digital workforce management tool, just like we have for regular workforces, human workforces. And some pieces of that particularly include being able to coordinate multi-agent systems.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe take a little different perspective on that, Michael, because multi-agent is extremely difficult. There's a little bit of work being done by companies right now connecting at the model layer, but the model layer is not the place to actually connect agent orchestration, especially if you're trying to orchestrate agents across all of the different marketing roles and marketing capabilities. So I think you're right that if they're doing that, that's huge, and they should get out of the CDP and marketing platform business, and they should just do agent orchestration. It's really hard, and it's some kind of combination between MCP and A to A is going to give us what we need for orchestration of multi-agents. But whenever somebody mentions that when they're in another business and they're talking about we orchestrate multiple agents, my red flag goes up.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And Agentforce, Salesforce just announced their capabilities to do multi-agent coordination, but that's coming, right? I mean, the MCP piece they already announced, the A to A piece they've said they're going to meet those standards and protocols, and assuming they will, of course. So that's coming. Workday's announced an offering in this space too. Again, doesn't quite go far enough yet, but I mean, it was the first version, so they're going to get there. So I think there are a lot of companies that are starting to think about this inside of their agent, whatever their agentic platform is.
Are you seeing, all of you, this AI craze more predominant in ERP, CDP, CRM, or HCM, or where are we seeing it? Are all the above, and then are the companies actually taking advantage of it?
It depends on where you look. So interestingly enough, I'm doing a project for a client that was about AI and privacy and AI adoption. And if you, and I just aggregated this data set of like 5,000 responses across the world of what companies are doing. If you look at it at a country level, in the US, more companies are investing in coding tools with AI. And then number 2 would be customer service or customer areas, customer functions. And in places like Mexico, it's exactly opposite. Developer coding didn't make the list. It's way down the list, I should say. And they're much more focused on customer experience. So it kind of depends, but from an overall perspective, customer service, customer experience, customer facing use cases for AI is the number 1 answer. And with coding and development, number 2.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. The difference between agent-based modeling and equation-based modeling. What you've done is you've looked to understand how different agents come together, and you've got to be able to have that architectural or mapping capability before you start any programming. Otherwise, there's an old saying in the old days: garbage in, garbage out. I mean, And I'm still seeing the SOA mindset in many of these organizations, service-oriented architecture. I don't know if any of you remember the old K-Pro CPM system. Yeah, anybody remember that? Way back when? And they came out with this, they called it a suite. It was called the perfect suite. Perfect database, perfect Word, perfect spreadsheet, whatever. And they were all developed by 3 different people. And they never meshed together. They never came together. So the problem we've got to get our mindset off is connectivity begins with the agent and building based upon our understanding of that. I mean, just one more example. When I automated the D&D's procurement platform, the first thing they said was, okay, or first question I asked is what time of day do orders come in? And they looked at me like, what does that have to do with procurement? Well, it sure did, because they weren't considering that the service department had their own separate system, and they were rewarded for getting in so many calls in a day that they would sandbag all the orders until the end of the day when prices were high and the shipping performance was so bad. But how would agentic AI know to ask that question? That's where you've got to have that front end understanding of the business. It doesn't replace. And to your point, Michael, you need to understand how your business works. Yeah. Don't put an AI into a system where you have no understanding of the strand commonality and the architecture there. That's my point with all this.
You have to know what you want out of it before you get started, is kind of precisely what you're saying. You have to have processes and people and put in place. It doesn't work like people think it does, and the data has to be strong. It's a complicated implementation, I think, and it's not as quick. Mm-hmm. But I do think what you said, Michael, customer service is probably one of the least complex to get up and running, and probably the fastest gains.
Gain. That's the real point, right? The ROI is really obvious. I think.
It's obvious. So procurement is a gigantic component where it can help out, and I think one of the most critical from a perspective of how a business runs. And like you said, John, it touches all facets of the business, and there's no doubt it does. And I think that's a great place to start to understand how your business infrastructure and architecture is laid out so you can make it better, because it's probably way too complex. Many extra, systems that aren't needed, and processes that have people in the loop that are probably not necessary. So I think you can make more an impact in both, but probably even more with procurement. So
I think you're right. Just one more thought: with the larger companies, the average major corporation has 25 different procure tech platforms. Yeah. Think about that for a second.
Why is that, though?
Because horizontal growth. Because somebody mentioned earlier, I got to solve a problem here, or I've got to solve a problem there. They don't have a communication and collaboration platform, and they're not digital ready. They're not AI ready, because everyone's got their own little focus on there. And then everyone says, well, how do we bring all these things together? And that's how we get to the point of where, well, how do we connect them electronically when you haven't connected them strategically? When you haven't understood the functions behind each one. So that's why it's these individual things, and more and more organizations are growing horizontal. And one more point, even with the emergence of these apps now, which is interesting. The CIO survey a couple of years ago once asked CIOs, how many apps do you think you have in your organization? They said about 100. The actual number was well over 900. Yeah. So,
it doesn't surprise me.
You're not going to, you need to have that communication and collaboration framework already in place before you automate.
So I want to jump back to the release and Zeta. I think one of the things a little bit hiding under the covers here is the fact that they've got these 245 million customer profiles. And what AI, especially large language models, are doing for companies that already have large sets of data assets is they're able to abstract from these large data sets intelligence, and abstract it away so it's not personally identifiable, and use it for their customers. So it seems like they have to be doing that, right? I mean, that's that's their core asset. That's what differentiates them from other people. So from my perspective, it's like if I could suddenly, as a marketer, have access to the knowledge of 245 million consumer profiles, sign me up, right? Because there's got to be some stuff in there that other companies are not able to access. And I think that's their true differentiator.
Yeah, so here, guys, I mean, if I look at 3 stories that we have covered so far, obviously Zeta, I have a lot more background, so they are definitely in the CDP space. Unifor, not too sure, but these guys are definitely in the CDP space. And the reason why they have so many different profiles, John, because they are more of the enterprise CDP platform. So obviously, even one client is probably going to have a lot more profiles in general. And that's why they are probably going to have a lot more data. But going back to the release again, and thank you so much, John, for bringing back to the release. So from the release perspective, to be completely honest, here, if I look at this, 3 stories again, comparing, maybe they are competitors. I don't know if they are or they are not. But if you look at this story, this does not sound very appealing in terms of the capability match perspective, because my take on these things would be that if your competitors are developing and they are slightly ahead in those capabilities, then you probably should be working on those as well if you don't want to fall behind. I know you guys are going to hate this comment, but it matters. You have to align the capabilities if you want to sustain in the market. So here, the way I'm reading this story, this seems to be slightly behind overall from the AI capabilities, because these guys are working on the answers. The other companies are developing the real agentic capability. So that would be my take on the story. But you guys probably have more insights.
I think you had a good summary. So
next,
I think we go next.
Okay, so we have one comment here. So let's touch on that, I guess, before we go to the next one. So Anders, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to read this. So Anders is saying, platform search agent seems similar to the previously hyped universal search in some platforms. More flexible, certainly, but with experience, how much value did universal search deliver? So Anders, I'll tell you this. I mean, if you are using a real ERP system, which could get very frustrating, and if you don't have universal search, you don't want to live your life. I'm telling you this right now. It's that frustrating. Okay, so universal search matters. And now with this platform search agent, in my mind, it's a very different capability in general. The agentic capabilities that you have, this is not just universal search, it's a lot more than that. So it's not just hype. It's a lot overall in terms of the capabilities perspective. You guys are probably going to have more comments there.
I mean, universal search, enterprise search, whatever you want to call it, it's hard. It's really hard. And at least with some of the AI tools that are coming out, there are some ways that you can start to help tie that together better. But it's still a very difficult problem to get to.
Yeah. If you guys don't have anything else, let's go to the next story.
Okay, we all know who Accenture is, pretty large consulting company. They launched the Stellar Agentic AI framework. I think this is more about enabling the clients to succeed with AI systems than really a product. But this gives them ability more, service capabilities around agentic AI and framework for multi-agent AI systems to actually implement and manage, adopt. But this kind of goes back to some of the other stories we all talked about, like putting the framework in place to actually take advantage of using agentic AI. And do you have those systems in place? I always worry about these customers. How far in that, innovation aptitude frame or journey are they at to actually take advantage of this? Because I think some of the companies that are pretty far behind with legacy systems are not in a position to do something like this. But what do we all think?
So some very interesting layers here, to be completely honest. And again, when I look at a story coming from a service company, consulting company, doing some AI stuff, I am generally not very excited about it, as you know me, I guess. But here, I'm reading some themes, and I don't know, how much play is there, but things such as your agent memory management, multi-agent collaboration. So these apps are probably going to become much thicker overall in terms of the capabilities. And, I would say there's a lot going on, and there's going to be a real marketplace sort of ecosystem, the way kind of, Salesforce is developing. We are going to see that a lot more with every single vendor. I think Workday is working on that as well. So overall, I would say the marketscape, it's probably marketplace probably is the right word, right? It's probably going to change completely. In general, the way enterprise software is delivered is how I'm reading these stories.
Okay.
I mean, you need a platform to do these things, and it looks like they're trying to come in and say, hey, we've got all the pieces, parts to do it. I will say, when I first read the headline, I was excited to see what Accenture was building for the distillery industry, but I guess I was incorrect. You never know. No, I do think that it seems like they're talking about all the right parts.
Making
right?
a bourbon.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. I mean, made multi-agent collaboration, all these different things, right? So it's good. I did like this physical SDK too. That's one that's going to be really valuable. I was looking at something the other day about tracking tracking items in a warehouse, and it was a startup that had built a system that used computer vision instead of using an IoT solution to track physically where things were in the warehouse by looking at it and seeing where it was. So there are lots of applications of that, I think, that are going to come out that'll be really interesting, and you're going to need a physical AI SDK to do that. So
yeah.
I think they're exciting what they're doing. I mean, to somebody's point, and I view everything with AI, again, just to reiterate, Metaprise, agent-based, strand commonality. Those are the three components I look at it through. And I think they're strongly aligned with the Metaprise approach, but they still need to address some of the connectivity issues between ERPs, SCPs, BOMs. Agent-based, I think they got it right, but they're doing scaffolding more than anything else right now. And they still have to have that unfold a little bit, which is what I think you're saying. And then when you get into the strand commonality part of it overall, again, there's still, the silo domains. And to your point, it's not a technology problem. It's not a technology issue. It's does the silos, how have they been broken down on the human side of the equation and the understanding of the business? Because you can't automate, you can't improve something if you don't understand and have all the right pieces in place. But as far as I see, Accenture's right now, from my standpoint, out of the 5 or 6 I looked at, are ranking right at the top because they encompass the entire concept of the Metaprise agent-based and strand.
Yeah, but is this just a cross-sell for them? I mean, because their customers, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, their customers are other people's customers, right? So they're using some systems, and so are they just trying to come up with additional services for cross-sell, or is this?
I think it's an operating system they're trying to build.
Accelerator.
Yeah.
I
think they're trying to compete with IBM more effectively, to be completely blunt about it. I think that because IBM has platforms and tools already, they're trying to do the same thing, and others too, not just them. I mean, some of the Indian firms, Wipro for once, they have come up with platforms as well. So I just think that's where the SI, service.
IBM has more products, though.
Of course they do.
Yeah, so this is a different. That's not apples to apples, but is this more of a cross sell to keep their customers in bed with them, or is this a product that was necessary to?
I think it's foundational to what they're trying to do with building out this practice around AI. I mean, you have to have a platform to focus on. Could they have said, "Hey, we're a Salesforce partner. We're doing Agentforce"? I mean, they probably are. They probably have a practice.
Sure, they are.
That, but I think this is, I think this is a way for their standalone AI platform and all the associated services that go around.
Yeah, I mean, they built everything on top of NVIDIA, which is a good general move. It's like that's what everybody is doing. Especially the consulting companies, they had to do that, but this is they have to do this for their customers.
Right.
This may not get them net new customers. It may actually, but they have to have this for their customers. And it's just this, to me, it's the same accelerator approach that they've used for years. Not just building, something on top of NVIDIA, but having the methodologies and building those methodologies into the tools, loading those methodologies into the large language models, and then building out the different go-to-market pieces. It looks like they have a B2B marketing piece. They've got another refinery for simulation and robotics. They've got one for sovereignty, which is basically for government. So I think that they're sort of codifying their knowledge around AI and building it into a set of accelerators on the platform.
Do they have the ability to bring it all together, John? I mean, like I called it an operating system. They're on the right framework mindset, but the reality is, do they have the ability to bring it all together?
That's a good point, John. And they probably wouldn't want to have it all brought together, or they wouldn't have a consulting business.
Well, the consulting world is changing, right? I mean, so that goes to your thing, what's in their best interest and what's in the customer's best interest. You got to find that. I think
the last I checked, they're a for-profit company, so I'm guessing that they're doing this also in their interest.
Yes.
Make it good, but not too good.
That's right.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think great coverage on this story. I don't know if you want to cover one more, or do we still want to cover?
Yeah, let's cover one. Let's go through the next one real quick. I think it's with SAP. I think it's a quick one, and precisely introduces AI-driven automation. I mean, this deals with data, data integration, data entry. I think it's a great thing if it works. It's always needed from the transformation perspective, and I'm a pretty good believer. We go back to what John said earlier: garbage in, garbage out. I think it has to be made clear that or a conviction that it's going to actually work and solve a pain point with minimal issues and risk. And who knows if that's actually the case, but that's what we want. What do we all think?
I mean, the 300 data fields got me, right?
Yeah.
300 data fields you got some poor person filling in. I want some automation. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
If it works. Yeah.
If it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. There's a company called Convergent IS, which is worked with SAP for years and years. They have this Rio that they've built. So at what stage, though, is SAP going to leverage those great tools that are out there? What stage are they going to acquire and assimilate those tools? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like there's a race between SAP and external development partners who may have built something. But, SAP sort of like there's a little battle going on, at least in the procurement realm. I mean, am I missing something there?
So generally, there should not be a race because SAP's job is to make sure that other people are making money. Otherwise, they are not going to probably sell on their platform. So that's how the marketplace business model works in general. But as far as the scope of the story goes, in my mind, when I look at the way the ERP space is going to change, and I think, Robert, you had some comment there. And here we are talking about 300 data fields. Obviously, that was the most frustrating part for anybody who was using any ERP system. And the other frustrating part was, even if you fill all of those 300 fields, they are never going to be accurate. So then you are opening up the can of worms, right? So that's where I guess this gets really interesting, how the ERP experience is going to change overall with the help of AI. But where I would have a little loss, or I probably can use some of your comments as well, is so obviously you are going to have very agentic experience, meaning the whole UI experience is going to change. And my prediction is going to be that we are not going to have much of the UI, in the future for most of the applications, including ERP. And here we are talking about just filling the fields. So this seems slightly different to me.
But I think
that
there's
this is a
something important
technology.
there, though, because you're talking about the idea that ERPs and a lot of enterprise systems, right? They're just dated, and the UIs are dated, and they're difficult. They require a lot of manual entry, and rather than rewrite the systems, we have these new systems that are going to sit across the top that do some of that, automate certain tasks, take care of things, and kind of abstract you back a layer in some cases from how you use the application, using it through AI versus going back in and doing the manual data entry in a field somewhere.
So when does the tail start wagging the dog, though? I mean, these UI entry point. I mean, like, you've got to find that tension. There is that tension there. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, and there's been a long-standing recognition. Does anybody remember Duet or the Mendocino project? Remember that? I mean, Microsoft going to buy SAP, and they needed the front end because everyone was using the front end Microsoft suite of tools. I mean, we've known this has been a long-standing problem.
It's a problem.
And because it has, it's not that it's new, but it's just they seem to get into this rut: acquire and assimilate, or acquire and control, or how do you control? Like snakes in the playpen. You've got all this creativity coming in. What do you do? How do you control that? Do you sort of siphon some of that off? Do you try to bring it into the ERP umbrella? I mean, are these reasonable questions, or do I need more coffee?
Both, but I think that it's so complex. It was a joke, but it's so complex. I don't think we can skin it in a minute. But I think it's no. I think that I would say that I think the ERP is set for an overhaul in the next 5 years, and it will be interesting how it shakes out. The problem is the customers are so complex and the industries are so diverse. It will take some time, and I'm not sure. It might take longer than that because all the vendors are adhering to the customers and the industries, and that's the guidance and the regulatory and the compliance and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. I want to go with a closing here that's a little bit unique. And it's a question that I got yesterday. I actually, I got a chance to get interviewed at the New York Stock Exchange. And one of the questions they asked me, I'm a professor at a university. I teach a class every semester. And they asked me, do I think AI is cheating in the academic world for students? And I'll tell you what I answered, but I wanted to see what you all think, because I think it's an interesting conversation. We'll talk about AI in the workforce and how it helps, but what are the negatives that it does? And thank you for the clap, Sam. It was really it just got posted on LinkedIn while we were on this call, the firm I work for. But John, with the beard, not the goatee, what do you think about AI and academics? Is it cheating or is it augmenting?
Let me put it this way, and I wrote many articles of this. There is the Funkin' Wagnalls, there's the Britannica, there's Microfiche, there's Google search, there's everything else. In each of these things, the enemy is not AI, but the commitment to continuous critical thinking. Information is being made available faster than ever before. Now, are people going to be lazy? Yeah, likely they're going to do that. It's a lot easier to cut and paste and put it in and say, look what I wrote, than it is when you're dealing with Funkin' Wagnalls and you couldn't exactly take the page out. But the reality is that the whole thing turns on critical thinking and human involvement, human in the loop. There are going to be people who are lazy. It will make cheating easier in some ways, but at the end of the day, the various brain scans show that anyone who turns off their thinking and goes to AI, parts of their brain start to sort of atrophy a little bit. So that, I think, is the inherent risk, that it creates a false sense of understanding when there is no understanding. Yet I think AI in the proper hands is an amazing tool. I think you can leverage it well. Anthropic's come out with things. There's so many different things. So my take on it is just this is a more advanced on steroids version of Funkin' Wagnalls that I used to study.
All right, John.
If you don't use it, you're missing out on a great opportunity to up-level your thinking, to have a thought partner, a strategic partner, and a research partner, whatever. Mm-hmm. If you overuse it, you, along with everybody else who overuses it, end up, you reduce yourself to the lowest common denominator. That will be a little bit above the old lowest common denominator. And so the key is you use it strategically as a thought partner, as a strategic partner, and you got to use it.
Yep. Michael?
Yeah, I think, the purpose of education is, while it sounds good to say it's its own purpose, it's not. It's to get a job and make a living and go into the workforce, be successful, blah, blah, right? You don't have AI skills, you don't understand AI, and you don't know how to use AI, you're going to have a problem when you get into the workforce, because that's where we're going. So that's simple enough. They need to be able to use those tools to get used to using them and build them into the way they work, because they're going to have to do that. There are certainly places where people cheat. They shouldn't cheat. There'll be ways to get back at that, I guess, and whatever. But in the end, I want to make sure people come out of there with the education they need to actually be successful into what's going to be the new hybrid workforce.
Just quickly, I'll turn it over to Sam. There has to be boundaries on both the students and the university. There has to be ability for them to use it to augment. It's the Google on steroids today, right? But they have to be able to learn and be able to understand the material. I'll put the link in that everybody can see what I actually said when I did the interview. But I think it is a form of cheating, and but cheating's always been going on. So it's just another form that it's front and center. But Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm probably going to make it quick. But overall, I like to redefine the context. I think we need to define what is cheating. Some people might call cheating. So, for example, let's say if I'm using AI for the same task, if I'm taking 5 minutes, the other person is probably going to take 1 hour. They might call that, hey, buddy, you cheated because you are using AI.
Well, if you use AI in this research papers, I have a tool that I can say, look and see how much AI was used to write that paper. So if it's 90%, we have a problem. If it's 45%, we know it was used to augment, and it was an industry 5.0 collaboration. But,
anyway. One thing I just got to add to all of this, I once interviewed one of the founders of the Second City in Chicago, and he said this: it's not a real superpower unless it can be used for both good and evil. And I think that's an appropriate.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point.
All right, guys. So I think we are over time now. So I'm gonna do a quick close. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our Analysts Gone Wild, and we meet every Thursday at 11 o'clock Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.